Hi, good morning, everyone. Today we have Nathan Smith here, the CEO of NeuroScientific Biopharmaceuticals with ASX ticker code NSB, Nelly Sierra Bravo. He's here today with us to talk about the company's exciting StemSmart program. StemSmart is NeuroScientific's innovative technology for producing advanced mesenchymal stem cells from adult bone marrow, aiming to help people with tough conditions like Fistulising Crohn's disease. Nathan brings deep experience in cell therapies to lead the next steps for StemSmart and help bring this important treatment option closer to patients in need. Welcome, Nathan. How are you?
Great. Great to be here.
Excellent. Now, Nathan, look, before we jump in, you did tell me that you're a new CEO. I'm very excited.
Mm,
And
yep.
you're 3 weeks into the job. How do you feel?
Look, it's exciting. I mean, look, it's a great technology. It's a great field, and the chance, to bring some of the experience that I have in my past in working in the cell and gene therapy space, and working in GMP manufacturing, and working in business development, to be able to bring these to patients in need, I think was an opportunity I couldn't pass up.
Wonderful. Well, in saying that, can you please give me and the viewers and our investors a quick overview of NeuroScientific Biopharmaceuticals and its core mission?
Yeah, sure. So NSB, as we like to call it,
Hmm.
is an innovative biotech company that's really focused on developing novel therapies for immune-mediated inflammatory diseases.
Hmm.
Like you mentioned, we recently acquired the StemSmart technology, which is
Hmm.
a mesenchymal stem cell product. And this product holds a ton of potential, and we'll talk a lot about that coming up. But holds
Yes.
a ton of potential for patients with unmet medical needs who have failed biologics treatments, especially in diseases with a high level of inflammation like Crohn's. And so our job and our core mission is to get access to these types of products, to these patients, and further develop it to improve their quality of life and their survival.
Thank you very much for that. Well, look, what makes your focus on neuroimmune disorders and inflammatory conditions different to the other biotech companies out there?
I mean, look, everyone says they have a world-class team. I think,
Hmm.
ours is fantastic, and one of the main drivers in the acquisition of the StemSmart technology. Previously, NSB did work more in the neuroimmune space. But I think more recently there's been a lot of promise with stem cells and their ability to treat patients with unmet medical needs and the diseases with high inflammation.
Great. Well, look, we're going to talk about some of these unmet needs and the segments you're going to be
Yep.
targeting. But for those who are unfamiliar with your recent acquisition, StemSmart, can you explain to us in layman's term what it
Sure.
is and the key advantage it offers over like traditional stem cell therapies, particularly in potency, safety, and your differentiation?
Yeah, so StemSmart it's differentiated from other MSCs in the fact that
Hmm.
um, we have IP around the manufacturing process, and the
Hmm.
end product is actually a an activated MSC. It's been turned on and upregulated so that when it sees areas within the human body that have high levels of inflammation, such as patients with Crohn's disease, um, they are able to really go in and control the immune response there and really promote healing. And so that's the promise of the StemSmart technology, and that's what we are why we're moving forward with the current work in fistulizing Crohn's and future clinical trials as well. But we're also looking at it for other indications as well. And we've treated over 200 patients with over a thousand doses of this
Hmm.
product, and it has been demonstrated with no adverse effects. And so the safety, has been demonstrated, and some of our, past clinical data has demonstrated its potency. So and the effectiveness of these activated MSCs. So with that, I think that promise is really part of the neuroscientific story when it comes to the acquisition of StemSmart and the clinical work that we're doing at this moment in time.
And going off topic here really quickly, I was going through your investor deck, and you guys are in phase two now, am I correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And what I read was that it's already some promising feedback from phase two.
Yeah, so we had an early phase two study with this product with over 80% clinical response
Hmm.
for patients that had failed previous lines of biologics therapy. So these are patients that really don't have many options, and their previous options had failed. And with an 80% clinical response, that was fantastic. And we also saw over 50% remission. So basically, patients that were considered Crohn's no longer had Crohn's after the treatment. And then over 40% what they call endoscopic remission. So they actually went through and did some endoscopic imaging and saw absolutely no evidence of any more Crohn's in their intestinal tract. So fantastic clinical data. And
Hmm.
I think on that subset of patients, I think what we want to do, off of the current program that we're doing right now is to build an even stronger case and and develop that further into a clinical program that then can extend to the United States, and obviously downstream into commercial
Excellent.
product.
Well, we'll touch about the commerciality very shortly because I also
Sure.
did some more research. Um,
Cool.
but look, maybe you've answered it, but I do want to ask the question again. Like, how does StemSmart differ from conventional mesenchymal
Yep.
stem cell treatments, MSC, as you called it?
Yep. Like I said, I mean, the patented manufacturing process produces an activated or turned
Hmm.
on MSC, which, when applied or treated to the different patients intravenously, which is how we administer the product, um, really provides a strong boost to the immune system,
Hmm.
especially around in diseases with high inflammation. So in those diseases, the MSCs are actually upregulated. So the activated MSCs go in and really help the immune system fight the inflammation, bring that down, and allow the body to do its natural healing. So in that way, that our product is differentiated from some of the other MSC products that are out there, which are excellent products as well, from
Hmm.
companies like Mesoblast and Synata and things like that.
Excellent. Now, look, I want to touch on your Crohn's disease program here because that's
Mhm.
quite unique. I mean, why have you chosen to target fistulizing Crohn's disease as your first major program? And how does your approach address these challenges that existing therapies have already struggled to meet?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Fistulising Crohn's population is, obviously a very serious subset of the Crohn's population that have a very difficult quality of life. I mean, the fistules that form on the intestinal tract, actually secrete fluid, and again, it makes for a very difficult quality of life for these patients. And again, most of these patients have tried biologics and other treatments that are out there, and really have not responded to them. And so they don't have many options, I think. And that's really where I think we see that need. And the fact that, again, our product is differentiated by the activated
Mm-hmm.
MSC, really allows it to have strong efficacy in diseases where the inflammation levels are higher and higher. And when that happens, we actually see a pretty profound clinical impact. So right now we've initiated a special access program where it's under compassionate use.
Okay.
And that program, again, it's not a trial, but it's a clinician-led
Hmm.
program where these patients are given this treatment under compassionate use framework, and in doing that, right, they're hoping to see some type of clinical impact. And from our side, yes, number one, it's getting, potentially giving these patients some relief from their symptoms, and hopefully from Crohn's disease in general, and closing these fistulas. But on top of that, it gives us a chance, get a chance to see some of the data that we can then help us down the line for our future phase two, be that through dosing, be that through maintenance and upkeep, be that through how the treatment is progressed over time. And so that's what we're hoping to get out of this program. But again, at the end of the day, right, if we can improve the quality of life for these patients, I think that's number one, and that's always going to be at the forefront of our minds.
Actually, they're the main
Of course.
stakeholders in all of this.
Yep.
So look, you've touched on the special access program. Could you number one, tell me a little bit more what it truly is, and
Mm.
what are you hoping to achieve with the program, and what's like the planned next steps after this?
Yeah, so the special access program is a program unique to Australia. I'm sure there might
Okay.
be some other jurisdictions that have some type of program like this. But in Australia, it's a specific program that is driven by clinicians that have patients with unmet medical needs that aren't responding to treatments that are out there.
Hmm.
And there is a potential experimental treatment
Got
that is out there, right? And that has not been approved or on the market. And so they work with the developers
it.
to put together a special access program where this experimental product can be used under a compassion use framework, and
Okay.
the clinician then will treat those patients with this experimental product. So we're working with a clinician out of the Fiona Stanley in Perth, Fiona Stanley Hospital in Perth, and she's a wonderful gastroenterologist that specializes in Crohn's disease and other gastroenterology type diseases. And so with that, she's working with us, and we're able to supply her product under this special access program that then enables these patients to get treated. And so, like I said, I mean, they don't really have any options. The clinician obviously thinks that there's potential in this type of treatment, and so they want to give it to their patients. And from our side, we want to make sure that there are some measurements that go along with it, right? So
Yep.
measuring the fistulas, measuring certain things around the Crohn's index, so that we can then utilize some of that data and help support future clinical trials.
No, it's good to know that you've already got the support of some critical physicians on board with the program.
Yep.
And I guess my next question I had is the demand high to gain access to your special access program at the moment?
We've got, so our intent right now is to treat probably somewhere between 10 to 14 patients,
Okay.
obviously targeting 12. We've already got 3 that have been lined up, and we just initiated this program, and we're
Yep.
we're actually recruiting heavily for the remaining 9 patients, that 9 to somewhere between 7 to 11 patients for this treatment. And so look, I think if the patients see an impact,
Mhm.
if they're if they do demonstrate, if they see a heavy reduction in inflammation, or if they start to see their fistulas actually close up, I think that the enthusiasm for this product is going to go through the roof. So, but that's what we're hoping. And I think from the previous Crohn's data that we have, we know that there's a significant clinical impact. So we're hoping that that translates to helping some of these patients that really that need it, obviously. And once that happens, then obviously we think that the momentum will pick up, and then that will obviously drive us through that clinical trial, and I think we'll bring clinicians on board. So we'll need to see how that works with the patient, but we have confidence that the product's going to have a clinical impact and a clinical effect.
Thank you, Nathan. Now, look, beyond Crohn's, what other
Mm.
conditions do you see like StemSmart being applied to in the future?
I think from our side, the really different diseases with high levels of inflammation. I mean, it just makes sense with the mechanism of action for these types of cells. So outside of Crohn's or beyond Crohn's, we're looking at I think obviously graft versus host disease has been something that Mesoblast has already made a name for itself in.
Hmm.
But there are some subsets of the graft versus host disease population that again are not eligible for the Mesoblast product. So there's potential there. I think we're also looking at and we've had some pretty strong discussions with clinicians in the
Hmm.
lung and kidney transplantation
Yep.
area. So and really helping support that and lower the levels of inflammation that are associated with those operations. So those are a couple that we're looking at, and there's some very interesting markets there, and not a ton of options. And so that's where we're looking at right now, but we're also considering innovations as well, and how we can, continue to grow and expand our IP. And that might take us into some other indications that are really right now kind of just starting to scope and pressure test.
Thank you. And look, now, I guess I want to segue in here. I'm supposed to ask it later, but I want to address it now.
Sure.
So, like, how large is the potential market for StemSmart? And like, where do you see
Mhm.
the biggest commercial opportunity? Because I, again, did some quick research yesterday,
Sure.
and I think it staggered me. It was like
Mm.
$58 billion total addressable market. Could you elaborate on that for me? Because I think a lot of
Yeah, look, I
people don't
think,
understand how big this market could
yeah.
be.
Yeah, look, Crohn's is huge, and it's definitely huge in the United States. A lot more there's a huge population there.
Mhm.
And so if you're looking at Crohn's by itself, we're probably looking at somewhere, in the 20 and 25, maybe $30 billion
Billion,
range.
billion.
Yeah, billion with the B. Yep. Sorry about that. But then on top of that, if you look at the other indications that we're looking at right now, yeah, now you start to get into 40, 50, $60 billion. And then,
Mm.
with the potential in the next 10 years to get, 60, 70, 80, into 100 billion. So I
Okay.
think, from, the different ones that and this is just with the StemSmart technology, not with any
Mm.
other potential innovations that we're looking at, and we're considering, at this moment in time. So there's a huge market opportunity here. And again, I think, the fact is that there are, it's an unmet medical need. These are patients that need some type of treatment, some type of solution. With Mesoblast and their approvals, and along with the commercialization that they've done with their product, we tend to see a pretty significant market opportunity here.
And on the back of that as well, we addressed the total. We talked about the total addressable market. It's undeniable that we talked about that you're obviously from America,
Mm,
and this is an Australian company. But your
sure.
aspirations are certainly not to address Australia as a market, but
No.
we're talking about the US and the
Oh
world.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, look, it's not. Look, we aren't going to be able to access that market if we're not in the United States.
Yeah.
So I think, part of our plan, obviously part of our strategy, is to initiate here, but easily, and expand into the U.S. very quickly. With we'll schedule, I think, as part of our
Mm.
milestones and our plans, pre FDA meeting, pre-IND meeting, with the FDA, sometime next year, so that we look at what we need to do to expand in, and with the clinical development that we'll be doing next year as well.
Well, then I guess that's the next question I have is like, how significant is the recent FDA approval for MSC therapy for the broader stem cell market then?
Yeah, look, Mesoblast's, approval was huge. I think,
Mhm.
what it did was it validated a lot of the development, and I think the blood, sweat, and tears a lot of scientists and business people put into, the mesenchymal stem cell product
Mhm.
class, over the last number of years. And finally, getting that approval in the US, I think opened the doorways. I mean, they had approval in Japan already.
Okay.
And so, but moving and being able to actually get it through, with the FDA was a huge milestone. And so, and it lifts the floor for the rest of the product class, right? For other companies, like us, like Synata, like some of the other MSC programs that are out there. And so, I think it's a great achievement. I think that there is, a lot that we can do, beyond what Mesoblast has done. And I think, kudos to them, and I'm sure that, they've got a lot of their plans and how they're
Yeah.
expanding, their patient populations and in different indications. But I think from what it does is it validates, our approach and our strategy, right? And it
Exactly.
it does give a blueprint for us to be able to take it forward. We know that there's, reimbursement pathways. We know that there's, approval pathways, things like that. So,
Hmm.
that's really promising. I think anytime there are established pathways instead of being the pioneer. I think, sometimes that can be good, that can be bad. But I think from our perspective, that, the fact that there is a product that has, that already has an approval, makes it easier for us to access those markets.
And look, on the back of that, I guess coming back to value and opportunity here
Mm.
is I know that East Coast Research recently did a report. Um, and your target price was around 50 cents. And since then,
Hmm.
your share price has moved from 5 cents to 20 cents in the last 4 months. I guess, do you have any comment around that? And how does that make you feel and the confidence moving forward?
Oh, look, look, it's fantastic. I mean, like you said at the start, I'm 3 weeks into the CEO role, and so coming in and seeing the share price move the way it has, and and where the market capitalization is now was a obviously was a huge bonus to kind of move coming into this role. I think that what it does is I think number one, I think there's a huge amount of positivity in the MSC space off like we talked about off of the Mesoblast approval. I think number two, the product type and the differentiation and the previous clinical efficacy we saw in Crohn's in the past Crohn's trials has really kind of boosted the company and in the market, and I think
Mhm.
that there's still a lot of room for growth. From my perspective, one of the big things is going to be shoring up the manufacturing and the supply chain, making sure that we've
Yep.
got the supply chain and the manufacturing sorted, for
Mhm.
the clinical trials all the way through the commercial distribution.
Sure.
Also looking at lowering the cost per dose. I mean, this is where MSCs and other allogeneic type products, which are products that can be obtained from a donor stem cell and then given to a whole number of patients,
Mm.
as opposed to a personalized medicine.
Yep.
The nice thing about that, and this is where we have that advantage, right? We should be able, the more doses we can make from one vial of bone marrow, really will drives down the overall cost and allows us to get that, make it a much better commercial model. So we're looking, and that's my job now, is to come in
Yep.
here around the manufacturing, really shore that up, make sure that we have a secure supply chain, and really drive down cost per dose. So those are things that we're really targeting. There's room for growth
Mhm.
there. But yeah, I think we hope to have, we plan to have some announcements once we have data from the first four patients, Fistulising and Crohn's patients, from the SAS program, to be able to share that. And then as we shore up the manufacturing, we'll share that as well with the
I
market.
think people underestimate the manufacturing distribution element.
Mm,
If you looked at the recent story around Novo Nordisk, and how they were undersupplying the market, and now Eli Lilly is actually catching up. So I think it's
yeah.
really critical. People don't understand or don't forecast that they actually have to be
Mm,
strategic and how to deliver it. Now I do,
yeah.
yeah. Any
No,
comment around
sorry.
that, Nathan?
Yeah, look, and it's even more telling, and those with biologic type drugs, right? It's even more telling when you get into the cell and gene therapy space, right?
Yep.
Because the manufacturing is even more complex, and that and lends an order of magnitude to the risk that's inherent in the manufacturing, and so there's when you look at companies like, say, Kite Pharma, which was acquired by Gilead, and why they've been so successful with their CAR T product, Yescarta. A lot of that has really to do with the amount of control and the amount of development they've done with their manufacturing, because it is so critical, especially for a product like a CAR T.
Thank you. Look, I guess final question, what key milestones should investors watch out for the
Yep.
next 12 to 18 months? And also I had phase two, when will
Mm.
the results be reported?
Yeah. So right now it's the SAS program. So we will be
Hmm.
reporting that. Obviously, the first four patients should probably be somewhere. I think we hope to have that data reportable by the end of the year.
Hmm.
By the end of this calendar year.
Sure.
With the all of the patients for that special access program reported by first half of 2026.
Okay.
And then the manufacturing that we're currently transferring to QGen in Brisbane. That should be tech transferred by I think early second half of next year.
Yep.
With us then being, the clinical development happening in parallel for the phase 2 study. And so we intend to treat first patient by the end of next year, is really the key milestone that we're looking at here. And then obviously, the time it's going to take to treat those patients both here in Australia, extend it to the United States. So we'll probably be looking at a readout somewhere in probably in 27, 28
Okay,
for the phase two. And the ability to take that into phase three and down a commercial pathway. The nice thing is we do have an expedited review process that we've already agreed to with the TGA for the phase two study. So once we have the manufacturing and it's the supply chain sorted, we'll initiate that trial as soon as we can and get that to patients.
tremendous. Thank you, Nathan. Look, I guess the next final one is, I do have one more question here is, look, I did notice that your market cap's approximately 26.5 mil. Am I on point around that? And you have,
It should be around more around 60 now, I think, because
oh,
I
wow.
think we're
Okay,
we're trading at around I think we're trading at around 20 cents right now. So I think
wonderful.
the market cap's really, I think last time I saw, which was I think it was early last week or earlier this week, it was somewhere between 60 and 65, but I
Tremendous.
might be wrong. Yep.
No, I hope you're right.
Yeah,
And you have a cash position of 7.5 million. Um,
that's correct.
Financial discipline, like how does that shore you guys up? Move like 3 weeks in, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, look, it makes me feel really, I think it's really promising.
Mhm,
And my job is to make sure that we stay lean, that we continue to drive, and be smart about our spend.
mhm,
Again, my job is to make sure that we set ourselves up for success in every step
cool.
along this pathway, and make sure that the strategy that we continue to commit to that strategy that we've developed. And look, it's fantastic having that money, but I think, you know, for people in the cell and gene therapy space, they know that can go pretty fast when it comes to clinical, especially a phase two clinical trial, tech transfer and manufacturing of GMP cell therapy products. So we're actively considering our next capital raise and everything like that. So that's stuff that we're working through as well.
Thank you, Nathan. Now, look, if we have any questions from our members, viewers,
Hmm.
or investors, I'll get them to email it to us in info@eastcoastresearch.com.au or info@sharesinvalue.com.au, and we'll forward them on to your team and you'll respond to them accordingly.
That would be fantastic. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, Nathan, look, I'll probably see you in about probably 6 months, 12 months time.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thank you.